The meeting itself is an intellectual exercise. The objectives of the meeting are actually to make a difference to policy level debate by taking the outcomes, in intellectual terms, to the policy audiences. We have a set of prevailing consensus in the international community about the importance of development and what constitutes development. We need to rethink that consensus for two reasons. First, because there are some intellectual or conceptual difficulties underlying it, which have been extensively explored in the academic literature, and it is timely to use some of that academic output to rethink some of our own presuppositions. Secondly, the actual process of development is running into problems. The Millennium Development Goals will probably not be achieved. They're even less likely to be achieved in the prevailing economic and financial climate than they were a couple of years ago. This is a real challenge because the Millennium Development Goals, first of all, were a very solemn commitment of the international community, and secondly, they were a very minimal threshold. The first Millennium Development Goal was quantified as halving the proportion of the world's population living on less than $1 a day. That's not a very ambitious objective. It's perhaps the minimum that we could even regard as acceptable. And if we fail to achieve even that, then that's failure. Similarly, with sustainable development objectives, the prevailing consensus is that the idea of sustainable development is clear. We just need stronger commitment to achieving it. And at Rio+20, we will need to address the so-called implementation gaps that have led the international community to fail to achieve objectives that it had clearly set for itself. But maybe that's not good enough. Maybe we need to rethink the underlying idea in order to be able to act effectively to achieve it. And with regard to the need to think critically about development in order to either reaffirm or modify some of the prevailing ideas, we are convinced that ethics has an essential role to play. The concept of sustainability is an ethical concept. The concept of inclusion is an ethical concept. The concept of equity is an ethical concept. Thinking about them ethically will help us to understand development as meeting human needs in ways that are more conceptually rigorous and more practically applicable. In practice, the outcome of the meeting will obviously be a report, as with any meeting. Our task is to make that report, which will reflect the intellectual discussions that take place at the meeting, in UNESCO's programs. For that, we need to use those outcomes to shape what we will do in terms of follow-up, and we need to take those outcomes to policy audiences, to our member states, to the rest of the UN community, and to relevant civil society partners in order to promote the kind of debate that we feel the international community needs in order to sharpen its commitments and to make a difference to its delivery.